Emotions are
light of
not
a growth
weakness, but
mindset.
public loss of emotional control is. A man can feel deeply. A man can hurt deeply. A man can love passionately, mourn sincerely, struggle silently. But when he allows all of that to spill uncontrollably in front of strangers, he hands over something sacred, the keys to his inner world. And not everyone deserves that access. Stoicism teaches, no man is free who is not master of himself. Epictetus, freedom is not just physical, freedom is emotional, freedom is internal, freedom is the ability to regulate your reactions even when your heart is storming inside. A Stoic man is not emotionless, he is emotionally disciplined. We live in a time where vulnerability is marketed as courage, where every feeling is encouraged to be shared, posted, recorded, broadcasted. People cry online for attention, arguments become content, breakdowns become entertainment, private pain becomes public performance. But here is the truth no one wants to say. Not everyone who watches you is wishing you well. Some are silently rooting for you to fall further. Public displays of emotion may get sympathy, but they rarely get respect. People are not just watching, they're calculating what moves you, what hurts you, what you fear, what makes you lose control, what makes you desperate, what you are emotionally attached to. And once they know your emotional triggers, they can manipulate you, provoke you, control you, use your emotions against you. A man without emotional boundaries walks into battle unarmored. A man who reveals everything is a man who protects nothing. Some will say, but isn't showing emotion healthy? Yes, isn't vulnerability important? Isn't holding things in unhealthy? The answer is simple. Context matters. Timing matters. Audience matters. A Stoic man is not suppressing emotion. He is directing it. He saves grief for private spaces, honesty for trusted people, fear for intimate conversations, vulnerability for those who have earned it, emotional expression for places where dignity is protected. He doesn't bleed in front of those who will weaponize the wound. He knows emotions are powerful, but also dangerous when uncontrolled. He knows tears come with meaning, but should be protected, not performed. He knows fear is real, but strength is the way he confronts it. He knows anger exists, but its expression must be measured. He knows sadness visits, but only trusted company deserves to see it. People think the Stoic man doesn't feel, but the truth is, he feels so deeply that he refuses to let emotions dictate his dignity. A man who exposes his vulnerability publicly becomes a magnet for two types of people. 1. Those who pity him. Pity is not respect. Pity lowers you. Pity places people above you. Pity turns you into someone who must be managed emotionally. 2. Those who exploit him. Some will see your emotional exposure as opportunity. Manipulators, narcissists, controllers, competitors, critics, they now know your emotional soft spots, and they will use them. A Stoic man refuses to give the wrong people a map to his weaknesses. Think about the men you respect: leaders, warriors, mentors, wise elders, Stoic thinkers. Why do they feel powerful? Because they are emotionally contained. They don't react impulsively. They don't break down publicly. They don't beg for comfort from strangers. They don't allow emotions to spill uncontrolled. Their emotional privacy creates mystery, strength, stability, reliability, gravity, authority. People trust the man who holds himself together when others fall apart. Let's be direct: crying uncontrollably in public, begging someone not to leave, pleading for validation, exploding emotionally in front of strangers, showing despair openly, losing your composure over rejection, panicking visibly under pressure. These behaviors do not make people care more. They make people trust you less. Because public desperation communicates lack of inner strength, lack of emotional control, lack of boundaries, lack of discipline, lack of self-respect. A man can break privately. He can struggle privately. He can cry privately. He can process deeply behind closed doors. But he never lets the world witness his complete collapse. Not because he is pretending, but because he is protecting himself. You don't reveal vulnerability in the middle of an argument, in front of strangers, in chaotic environments, in public spaces, on social media, among people who haven't earned your trust. You reveal vulnerability in intimacy, in genuine trust, in private circles, with loyal friends, with safe women, with family who has earned emotional access. Stoic masculinity is not about being closed. It is about being selective. Hands-on noise is not strength. It is insecurity wearing a mask. True strength is quiet. It doesn't need attention. It doesn't need witnesses. It doesn't need to prove anything. Picture a seasoned warrior. Imagine him standing in the middle of a battlefield, chaos around him, noise everywhere, but his eyes, calm, his breath, steady, his steps, deliberate. A man like that doesn't need to roar. His presence speaks louder than any outburst ever could. This is what Stoic strength looks like in modern life. A man who stays composed when others fall apart. Most men don't realize this, but anger is not a sign of power, it is a sign of surrender. When someone can make you angry, they can control you. They can manipulate you. They can steer you into decisions you'll regret. Anger hands the steering wheel of your life to someone else. And you know what's worse? The person who provoked you usually walks away calm and satisfied, while you are left looking like a man who cannot manage himself. A Stoic man refuses to operate that way. He guards his mind like a fortress. He guards his emotions like a king guards his crown. He understands that losing your temper is losing your throne. Think about the kind of men the world admires. Is it the loud ones? The impulsive ones? The ones who shout and throw tantrums? Or is it the men who stay grounded even when everything is falling apart? We admire the firefighter who walks into danger with a calm mind, the leader who speaks softly when others panic, the father who protects his family without raising his voice, the man who listens, observes, and chooses his words with precision. There is something magnetic about a man who refuses to be moved by chaos. Because stillness, in a world addicted to noise, is a form of dominance. If people can predict that you will explode under pressure, they can control you. If they know that disrespect will rattle you, they will use it. But when a man stays calm, truly calm, he becomes unpredictable. And unpredictability is power, because people don't know how to influence a man who lives by his principles, not his impulses. They cannot manipulate him, they cannot scare him, they cannot intimidate him, they cannot lure him into emotional traps. A calm man is dangerous because he cannot be provoked. Let's be clear. Being calm does not mean being passive. Stoicism is not weakness, it is not cowardice, it is not pretending everything is fine. It is choosing the right response, not the emotional response. So when someone disrespects a Stoic man in public, he does not raise his voice. He does not react impulsively. He does not engage in pointless battles. Instead, he observes, he evaluates, he responds only if necessary, and only in a manner that serves his dignity. Sometimes that means walking away. Sometimes that means silence. Sometimes that means speaking firmly and directly, but never emotionally. If losing your temper makes you look weak, then complaining makes you look empty. There is nothing that dissolves respect faster than a man who constantly shares his burdens with the world, hoping someone will rescue him, validate him, or feel sorry for him. Seneca once said, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor." This was not just a lesson about wealth, it was a lesson about character. Because complaining does not reveal your problems, it reveals your hunger for validation. And validation seeking is poverty of the spirit. Scroll through social media, watch people in restaurants, listen in on conversations in workplaces. You will find the same pattern everywhere. People broadcasting their struggles as if pain is a brand and suffering is a performance. They want the world to see, look how hard my life is. Look how unfair everything is. Look how much I deal with. But here's the question. A man who constantly complains or seeks sympathy is telling the world, I can't carry my own weight. I want others to feel responsible for my emotions. I believe my struggles make me special, but struggles do not make you special. How you handle them does. Life is not easy. No philosophy, Stoic or otherwise, denies that. But complaining about hardships is like watering a weed. The more attention you give it, the more it grows. A Stoic man understands that every difficulty is a chance to sharpen himself. Not to advertise his suffering. He does not beg for sympathy. He does not narrate his pain to the public. He does not try to win pity points. He endures, he adapts, he overcomes, silently, because strength that is performed is fragile, but strength that is quiet is unbreakable. It's simple. People admire resilience, not theatrics. When you complain, you communicate one message: I am overwhelmed by life. Even if they empathize, even if they offer comfort, deep down people register you as someone who cannot stand firmly on his own. Complaining turns you into a drain instead of a source, a weight instead of support, a follower instead of a leader. And people do not naturally respect those who lean too heavily on others. They respect the man who stands even when his knees shake. When you complain, what you're really saying is, life is hard, and I want someone else to fix it. You cast yourself as the victim, and victims rarely earn genuine respect. The Stoic man does the opposite. Instead of complaining, he asks, what can I control? What can I change? What can I learn? How can I carry this load with dignity? This mindset transforms problems into training, stress into strength, hardship into discipline. Complaining transforms nothing, it only spreads the weight to others. Many men confuse sympathy for respect. They think if people feel sorry for them, they will care. They will support, they will show devotion, but sympathy is not admiration. Sympathy is not leadership, sympathy is not strength, sympathy is pity, and pity places you below the person who gives it. You cannot lead people who pity you. You cannot inspire people who see you as fragile. You cannot command respect from those who believe you are drowning. A man who wants respect must stop fishing for sadness and start cultivating resilience. A man who complains frequently becomes addicted to it. Complaining offers temporary relief, a quick emotional release. But like all easy escapes, it weakens you. Because every time you complain, someone else becomes the listener, the comforter, the rescuer, the shoulder, and you become the burden, the source of negativity, the emotional child. This creates a cycle where weakness becomes familiar, and familiarity becomes identity. Eventually, you forget what strength even feels like. Imagine a man in ancient Rome, a soldier, a philosopher, a father, a citizen. Imagine he wakes up every morning knowing he must face uncertainty, danger, loss, pain. Yet he does not write a public diary of his suffering. He does not gather an audience to perform his hardships. He carries them, he learns from them, he becomes greater through them. That is what Stoicism was built for, not comfort, but transformation through adversity. Complaining prevents transformation, it keeps you in a childlike mindset, hoping someone else will carry what only you can carry. Every environment, from workplaces to families to friendships, subconsciously organizes people into two categories. 1. The ones who handle problems. 2. The ones who add problems. The man who complains becomes the second. The man who endures becomes the first. Who do people follow? Who do they trust? Who do they admire? Who do they rely on? Always the man who handles things quietly. Why? Because quiet strength is reliable, and reliability is rare. There is a deeper reason Stoicism rejects complaining. When you complain, you hand responsibility to the world. You say, this problem controls me, this situation owns me, my emotions depend on circumstances. Complaining is an act of surrender. A Stoic man chooses the opposite. He reclaims control by saying, this problem is mine to manage. My reaction is mine to shape. My emotions belong to me, not to circumstances. I decide what this hardship turns me into. This is how dignity is built. He doesn't pretend pain doesn't exist. He doesn't fake a smile. He doesn't become a robot. Instead, he uses a 3-step internal process. Step 1, acknowledge it privately. He tells himself the truth. This hurts. This is difficult. This is unfair. But privately. Step 2, evaluate what is controllable. He separates the situation into what he can influence, what he cannot influence. Then he acts only on the first category. Step 3, endure the rest with dignity. He accepts the burden with calm authority. He refuses to dramatize it. He refuses to make it a spectacle. He refuses to use pain as a currency for attention. This is emotional adulthood, and adulthood is the foundation of respect. Every action you repeat becomes a training session for your identity. Complain often, right pointing arrow, train weakness. Endure quietly, right pointing arrow, train resilience. Seek sympathy, right pointing arrow, train dependency. Solve problems, right pointing arrow, train leadership. Complaining trains your mind to surrender under pressure. Over time, your threshold for pain gets lower, your tolerance for stress weakens, and small problems begin to feel like catastrophes. But a Stoic trains the opposite. He trains his mind to withstand storms, so that when real storms come, he is already prepared. When you complain, you attract gossips, emotional rescuers, people who enjoy feeling superior, people who want to fix you. But when you stay strong, you attract leaders, builders, protectors, grounded men and women, people who respect maturity. Strength connects you to stronger people. Weakness connects you to weaker people. Which group do you want to be surrounded by? There is a moment in every man's life when he must decide. Do I want sympathy, or do I want respect? You cannot have both. Sympathy keeps you small, respect demands you rise. A man who walks with dignity does not advertise his wounds. He heals them quietly, he learns quietly, he carries on quietly. and in that quietness, he builds a reputation stronger than any speech. And pity never brings respect. You cannot complain your way into admiration. You cannot win loyalty by showcasing fragility. You cannot grow by outsourcing your burdens. The Stoic man knows, what you tolerate internally becomes who you are externally. If you tolerate complaining within yourself, you become a complainer. If you tolerate self-pity, you become pitiful. But if you tolerate discomfort, discipline grows. And discipline earns respect. There is a particular kind of weakness that reveals itself not through anger, and not through complaining, but through something far smaller, and far more common: gossip. The moment a man opens his mouth to speak ill of someone who is not present, he exposes something about himself, not about the person he's talking about. Epictetus taught, when you are tempted to talk about someone's faults, turn to yourself and examine your own. Because gossip is not a reflection of the world, it is a reflection of the speaker. And nothing erodes respect faster than a man who uses the failures, mistakes, or flaws of others as a source of entertainment or superiority. A strong man stands tall by standing on his own principles. A weak man stands tall only by lowering others. That is why gossip is so intoxicating for the insecure. It gives them a brief, fake feeling of elevation. Talking about the problems of others makes them forget their own problems. Laughing at the failures of others makes them forget their own fears. Highlighting the weakness of others makes them forget their own lack of discipline. But this illusion lasts only a moment, because the moment the conversation ends, the truth returns. They are still the same man, unchanged, unimproved, unfocused. A man who gossips does not grow, he escapes, and escapism is the opposite of strength. When you gossip, you think you're telling others something about the person you're talking about. But in reality, you're telling them something about you. You're saying, I cannot be trusted. I talk behind people's backs. I enjoy tearing others down. If you're not in the room, I may speak about you next. And everyone, whether they say it or not, hears these messages clearly. People respect the man who speaks with purpose. They distrust the man who speaks carelessly. Because careless words come from a careless mind, and a careless mind cannot lead. In the modern world, people speak too quickly. They speak without thinking. They speak for reaction, not reflection. But a Stoic man is different. He treats his words like a warrior treats his blades, sharpened when needed, sheathed when not. He understands the value of restraint. He knows how to stay quiet when silence is stronger, speak when speech serves a purpose, withhold judgment when he lacks knowledge, avoid insults because insults reveal insecurity, rise above gossip because gossip reveals immaturity. Words are one of the greatest tools of influence a man possesses. And wasting them on gossip is like using a sword to cut fruit instead of defending yourself. Imagine two men walking together. One of them starts saying, "Did you hear what he did? Let me tell you what she said. You won't believe how he messed up." What happens? The listener begins to see him differently, not as someone insightful, not as someone wise, but as someone petty. Because gossip is the behavior of men who lack depth. It is the behavior of men whose minds live at ground level. A man with purpose does not have time for it. A man with ambition does not lower himself to it. A man with discipline does not need it. Gossip is small talk for small minds. A refined mind rises above it. Why do Stoics refuse to talk negatively about others? Not because they're naive, not because they deny human flaws, not because they avoid truth, but because they understand a simple fact. Every moment spent analyzing someone else is a moment stolen from improving yourself. A man who constantly dissects the failures of others rarely examines his own. And a man who rarely examines his own rarely evolves. So instead of asking, what is wrong with him? A Stoic man asks, what is wrong with me? What can I fix in myself? What can I learn? What needs more discipline? What weakness must I conquer today? This is how wisdom grows, from the inside out. When you enter a room and the first thing you do is gossip, you poison that room. You poison trust, loyalty, respect, connection, dignity. People may laugh with you in the moment. They may play along. They may entertain your stories. But afterward, they remember. And what they remember is, you are dangerous in the wrong way. In a world addicted to noise, silence becomes a rare currency. People who talk too much lose value. People who speak too quickly lose influence. People who gossip lose credibility. But the man who talks less, the man who chooses his words, becomes someone others naturally pay attention to. Because silence signals depth, self-control, confidence, focus, inner structure. There is a certain power in a man who does not rush to speak. He becomes unpredictable, mysterious, respected. Others wonder, what does he know? What is he thinking? Why doesn't he involve himself? Silence, when used wisely, commands more attention than gossip ever. Many men gossip because they feel threatened. They fear that someone else's success diminishes their own. They fear someone else's strength exposes their weakness. They fear someone else's rise reminds them of their stagnation. So they attack, not directly, because that requires courage, but indirectly, through whispers, jokes, sarcasm, stories. This is not strength, it is jealousy wearing a mask. A Stoic man does not tear down. He builds himself, he builds others, he builds environments where respect grows, not shrinks. Jealousy lowers a man, discipline raises him. Actions matter, but words travel faster. A single careless sentence can shape how people see you for years. A single gossip session can turn allies into skeptics. A single negative comment can stain your integrity. Reputation is not built only through what you do. It is built through what you consistently say. People may forget what you wore. They may forget what you owned. They may forget what you posted. But they will never forget how you talked about others. Because how you talk about others tells them how you will talk about them. This is the verbal code of a Stoic man. 1. If it's not true, don't say it. 2. If it's true but not necessary, stay silent. 3. If it's true and necessary but not useful, refine it. 4. If it's harmful, remove it. 5. If it's gossip, eliminate it entirely. A man who lives by this code becomes someone others trust instinctively. Because trustworthy speech builds trustworthy character. He does not lecture people. He does not look down on them. He does not act superior. Instead, he uses subtle but powerful tactics. He redirects the topic. He asks a question that shifts the focus. He introduces something meaningful. He stays silent until the topic dies. His restraint changes the atmosphere. People feel the shift, even if they don't fully understand it. And slowly, people stop gossiping around him. Why? Because a man who does not participate in gossip becomes a man others feel compelled to rise up to. Spending your time analyzing others prevents you from analyzing yourself. And a man who never looks inward never elevates his soul. Gossip is cheap entertainment for cheap minds. Self-examination is the path of warriors. A Stoic man knows this truth. The noise you create outside reveals the silence you fear inside. Men gossip to avoid confronting themselves. But a disciplined man confronts himself daily. He is not afraid to see his flaws. He is determined to correct them. Because character cannot evolve in the shadows, it requires honesty under light. Your words can do two things: build, destroy. Each time you open your mouth, you choose which one. A weak man destroys, with gossip, sarcasm, insults, rumors. A strong man builds, with wisdom, clarity, encouragement, truth. People remember the man who builds them up. They forget, or avoid, the man who poisons the air. Gossip is noise, wisdom is silence. When you gossip, you chase attention. When you stay silent, you command it. When you gossip, you leak power. When you speak only with intention, you accumulate power. When you gossip, you reveal insecurity. When you stay dignified, you reveal maturity. Respect is not given to the loudest voice. It is given to the voice that speaks with purpose. And a Stoic man knows, your words become your reputation. Your silence becomes your strength. Of all the traps modern men fall into, there is one that looks harmless, yet silently kills strength, dignity, and respect: the craving for validation. In a world obsessed with being seen, being liked, being praised, and being admired, the man who doesn't chase attention instantly becomes the rarest and most magnetic presence in any room. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one." This single sentence is the antidote to validation addiction. Because a man who is something never needs to prove anything. A man who lives his principles never needs applause. A man who embodies strength never needs to announce it. Look around, people are no longer living for themselves. They are living for audience approval. Every moment becomes a performance. Every action becomes branding. Every achievement becomes content. Validation is their oxygen. They cannot breathe without it. They need someone to say, "You're amazing. You're doing well. You matter. You're impressive." But here's the truth. The man who needs validation is never free. He becomes a servant to other people's opinions. A Stoic man refuses that prison. He is not driven by eyes watching him. He is driven by values shaping him. A man brags for one reason: Something inside him feels insufficient. Men who show off are trying to fill a void that cannot be filled with applause, attention, or envy. They show off their possessions, their achievements, their strength, their lifestyle, their relationships, their status. But showing off is like pouring water into a bucket with holes. The moment the applause fades, they feel empty again. The moment no one is watching, they feel invisible. The moment praise stops, their confidence collapses. Because real confidence doesn't come from validation, it comes from identity. True confidence is quiet. When your sense of worth depends on approval, you lose control over your life. You dress for them, you speak for them, you behave for them, you choose for them, you post for them, you plan for them, you live for them. But who are they? Most of the time, strangers, acquaintances, people whose names you don't know, people who don't care about you, people who will forget you tomorrow. Imagine shaping your identity around opinions that disappear in seconds. A Stoic man shapes his identity around something eternal, his principles. Picture two men entering a room. One walks in loudly, talking about everything he's done, all he's accomplished, and how impressive he is. The other walks in silently, observing, listening, keeping his presence calm and steady. Which one do people really take seriously? Exactly, because the loud man is trying to convince others. The quiet man has already convinced himself. Confidence that needs to be displayed is not confidence, it's marketing. Confidence that is silent is what people trust. Stoic philosophy teaches one core truth: internal approval greater than external validation. A man must be able to look in the mirror and approve of himself even if no one else applauds. A Stoic man asks, did I act with integrity? Did I stay disciplined? Did I keep my promises? Did I behave according to my values? Did I show self-control? Did I rise above emotion and ego? If the answer is yes, he is validated. Because the only validation that matters comes from within. Think about it, the man who constantly boasts looks insecure. The man who constantly flaunts looks needy. The man who constantly seeks praise looks empty. You know what's interesting? The more a man tries to convince others he's powerful, the less powerful he appears. Why? Because real power doesn't announce itself. A storm does not need a microphone. A mountain does not need an audience. A lion does not need to roar for approval. A strong man's presence speaks louder than his words ever could. Validation lasts seconds, respect lasts decades, but they cannot coexist. The man who seeks validation loses self-respect. The man who builds self-respect no longer needs validation. And self-respect changes everything: your posture, your presence, your decisions, your boundaries, your relationships, your direction in life. Self-respect builds a life. Validation addiction destroys it. A man who lives for validation asks, what will people think of me? A man who lives for purpose asks, what will I think of myself? A man who lives for validation asks,
how can I look impressive? A man who lives for purpose asks, how can I be useful? A man who lives for validation asks, how can I get attention? A man who lives for purpose asks, how can I grow? Purpose creates fulfillment. Validation creates anxiety. Purpose creates identity. Validation creates dependency. Purpose creates leadership. Validation creates weakness. When you show off, people don't admire you, they tolerate you. They nod, they smile, they pretend to be impressed. But deep down, they feel something else entirely: discomfort, envy, irritation, boredom, distrust, distance. Because showing off makes people feel one thing: you are trying too hard. And trying too hard is the opposite of strength. Strength comes from ease, confidence that flows naturally, not forcefully. There is something incredibly attractive about a man who does not brag, does not seek attention, does not flaunt his achievements, does not need validation, does not perform for others, does not chase approval. He becomes magnetic because people want to know what he knows. He seems to carry secrets others don't. People want to understand why he is calm. He is grounded while others are restless. People want to uncover what gives him confidence. He does not bend to opinions. People want to follow him. Stillness attracts. Noise repels. Prove yourself to yourself. Asterisk. You do not need to prove you are strong. Just be strong. You do not need to prove you are disciplined. Just live disciplined. You do not need to prove you are successful. Just build success quietly. You do not need to prove you are wise. Just choose wisdom consistently. People respect the results of a man's life, not the narration of it. When you stop seeking validation, you become uncontrollable. Validation is a leash. If people can control you with praise, they can control you with criticism. But when a man no longer seeks validation, criticism no longer scares him. Rejection no longer hurts him. Praise no longer manipulates him. Opinions no longer direct him. Judgment no longer limits him. He becomes untouchable, because the world cannot move a man who does not need the world's approval. Attention is currency. Wise men spend it carefully. Every time you show off, you buy temporary admiration, at the cost of long-term credibility. But when you live quietly, purposefully, and intentionally, your achievements speak for you. Let your success make the noise, not your mouth. Let your discipline draw attention, not your ego. Let your actions make people talk, not your bragging. Men who show off are usually comparing themselves to others. They see another man's strength and feel weak. They see another man's success and feel insecure. They see another man's confidence and feel incomplete. So they perform, they exaggerate, they inflate, they boast, they pretend. But comparison is the enemy of self-respect. You cannot build your identity while measuring it against everyone else's. The Stoic man compares himself only to who he was yesterday. People are naturally drawn to men who don't need approval, don't need applause, don't need attention, don't need to prove themselves, don't need external affirmation. Why? Because those men are stable. They make decisions from clarity, not insecurity. They stand firm in storms. They remain calm under pressure. They carry themselves with dignity. This is what leadership looks like. Leadership is not loud. Leadership is consistent. Validation makes you hollow. Self-mastery makes you whole. You can spend your life chasing approval and end up empty, or you can spend your life mastering yourself and end up unshakable. Validation is cheap. Character is priceless. Validation fades. Principles endure. Validation impresses people briefly. Self-mastery impresses people forever. Remember this. You do not need to prove who you are. You simply become it, quietly, consistently, daily. That is the Stoic way. That is masculine wisdom. That is where respect is earned. There is a type of strength that elevates men, and another that exposes their immaturity. Mocking others, belittling them publicly, or humiliating someone for entertainment is the surest sign of weakness disguised as confidence. Anyone can tear someone down. Only a strong man can lift himself without lowering others. Stoic philosophy teaches a simple truth. The weak find power by diminishing others. The wise find power by mastering themselves. And nowhere is this more visible than in how a man treats those with less strength, less knowledge, or less social advantage than him. Men mock others for 3 reasons. 1. To hide insecurity. 2. To gain attention. 3. To feel temporarily superior. Mockery becomes a mask. It hides doubt. It hides fear. It hides internal instability. A man who is genuinely confident, deeply grounded, and at peace with himself does not need to humiliate anyone. Why? Because humiliation is the strategy of men who cannot lead through character, so they attempt to lead through dominance. But dominance built on disrespect is an empire made of sand. Think of a moment you witnessed someone mocking another person in front of a crowd. Maybe a boss insulting an employee. Maybe a man belittling a waiter. Maybe a friend laughing at someone's mistake in front of others. Maybe a stranger ridiculing someone on social media. In that moment, did it make the mocker look strong? Or did it reveal something fragile inside him? Most people can see it instantly. He is trying too hard. He is masking his own shortcomings. He is desperate to appear dominant. He has not mastered his impulses. He craves attention, not respect. Humiliating someone does not raise you, it exposes you. Stoicism teaches tactical patience, emotional maturity, and mastery of the tongue. A Stoic man understands that words can destroy dignity. Humiliation can scar someone for years. Public ridicule damages both sides. Mockery reveals a lack of discipline. So he chooses restraint. He does not use insults as weapons. He does not use sarcasm as superiority. He does not use laughter as ammunition. Instead, he uses silence, presence, and principle. Because true authority is quiet. Quiet power doesn't need an audience. Quiet power doesn't need cruelty. Quiet power doesn't need validation. A psychological breakdown. 1. Insecurity looking for cover. Men who feel small inside try to feel taller by cutting others down. It's psychological compensation, a way to avoid confronting their own weaknesses. 2. Ego trying to prove itself. Mockery is the ego's way of saying, I matter. I'm superior. But the need to announce superiority is evidence you don't actually feel it. 3. Social anxiety masked with humor. Some men attack first out of fear of being judged or dismissed, so they strike to protect themselves. 4. Emotional immaturity. Humiliation is childish behavior. It signals a man who hasn't developed empathy, discipline, or self-awareness. A Stoic man grows beyond these impulses. People may laugh with you. They may enjoy the show momentarily. But internally, they make a mental note. If he talks like this about others, he can talk like this about me. Mock someone once, and people fear you. Not because you're strong, but because you're unpredictable and unsafe. Mock someone twice, and people avoid you. Not because you're powerful, but because you're emotionally unstable. Humiliate someone repeatedly, and your reputation becomes poisoned. A man who mocks others may gain attention, but he will never gain respect. There is a difference. Attention is momentary. Respect is earned through character. Mockery attracts attention the same way an accident on the street attracts a crowd. People look, but they don't admire. A man who humiliates others is not respected. He is avoided, he is tolerated, he is used, he is eventually forgotten. Respect belongs to the man who lifts others, not the man who pushes them down. A powerful man doesn't have to announce anything. He doesn't need to attack to prove superiority. He doesn't need to dominate to feel valued. He stands where he stands, calm, disciplined, grounded. But a man who mocks others reveals something very telling. His identity is fragile. His ego is loud. His self-respect is shaky. His inner world is disordered. His confidence is borrowed, not earned. Cruelty is noise. Strength is silence. Masculine energy, true masculine energy, is protective, stable, principled, measured. Mockery destroys that. It pulls you into pettiness, childishness, emotional reactivity, unpredictability, petty competition. A man cannot be both petty and powerful. He must choose one. Stoic masculinity chooses elevation, not degradation. Every time you embarrass someone, you plant a seed of resentment. Maybe they laugh on the outside. Maybe they pretend not to care. Maybe they stay silent, but internally, trust is broken. Respect is shattered. Resentment grows. Loyalty dies. They remember. People forgive honesty. They forgive mistakes. They forgive weakness. But they rarely forgive humiliation. A single moment of mockery can undo years of trust. A single insult can turn allies into enemies. A Stoic man refuses to create unnecessary enemies. The true test of character is not how you treat equals, but how you treat those with less power. A strong man protects, uplifts, guides, encourages, corrects without crushing. A weak man mocks, exposes, embarrasses, belittles, attacks. You can measure a man's morality by how he treats someone who cannot repay him. You can measure his dignity by how he speaks about those who cannot defend themselves. Many men use humor as a shield. They hide fear behind jokes. They hide insecurity behind laughter. They hide envy behind sarcasm. But a joke that humiliates someone is not wit, it's immaturity. People forget jokes, but they never forget wounds. They might laugh, but they won't trust. They might smile, but they won't respect. They might stay present, but they won't follow. Humor at the expense of others is cheap currency. It spends fast and leaves you bankrupt. When conflict arises, a Stoic man holds 3 priorities. 1. Protect dignity, his own and others. 2. Maintain order. 3. Choose the response that strengthens character. He doesn't humiliate. He doesn't embarrass. He doesn't escalate. He communicates clearly. He sets boundaries firmly. He corrects respectfully. He withdraws when needed. Because humiliating someone never strengthens your position, it only fractures your integrity. A man who respects himself naturally respects others. A man who disrespects others signals that he lacks self-respect. Mockery reveals internal disorder. Humiliation reveals internal insecurity. Belittling reveals internal emptiness. When your inner world is balanced, insults lose their value. When your identity is rooted, you stop needing to punch downward. When your confidence is real, humiliating others becomes unnecessary. Stoics were not soft. They were not passive. They were not fragile. But they were kind, not because they feared confrontation, but because they mastered themselves. It takes strength to remain kind when others provoke. It takes control to stay respectful when others are disrespectful. It takes discipline to avoid sarcasm when ego demands it. Kindness from a weak man is fear. Kindness from a strong man is power. Humiliating others shrinks you. Uplifting others expands you. Asterisk. Humiliation is a shortcut, easy, lazy, thoughtless. Strength takes effort. patience, maturity, self-control. A Stoic man refuses the path of cruelty. He chooses the path of discipline, dignity, and character. Remember this. Dignity never comes from dominating others. It comes from dominating yourself. And when you can dominate yourself, your impulses, your reactions, your emotions, you rise above the need to hurt anyone. The world respects the man who chooses restraint over ridicule, control over cruelty, principle over ego. That is the way of the Stoic. That is the way of masculine wisdom. That is the way of true authority. People judge what they see. If they see emotional volatility, they assume instability. If they see emotional desperation, they assume weakness. But if they see composure, calm breath, steady posture, controlled tone, measured response, they assume wisdom, maturity, strength, leadership, confidence. Perception is not everything, but in public, it matters. Because respect is built on the image of stability. He does not suppress. He does not explode. He does not collapse. He follows a disciplined process. Step 1. Ground himself internally. Slow breath, relaxed shoulders, quiet mind, centered awareness. Step 2. Maintain external composure. Neutral expression, measured tone, stillness of the hands, no sudden movements, no reactive words. Step 3. Withdraw when needed. He steps aside, takes space, excuses himself calmly, walks away to regulate privately. A Stoic man does not fight his emotions, he manages them with strategy. Imagine two men in crisis. One is panicking, breathing heavily, shaking, raising his voice, begging for reassurance. The other remains composed, assessing, thinking, leading, choosing his words carefully. Who do people follow? Who do they listen to? Who do they feel safe around? Always the composed man, because emotional containment creates psychological safety. When a man becomes emotionally disciplined, he gains 5 forms of power. 1. Power of unpredictability. No one knows how to manipulate him. 2. Power of stability. People rely on him under pressure.
3. Power of respect. Calm men gain respect effortlessly. 4. Power of authority. His presence becomes grounding. 5. Power of influence. People follow the one who stays steady. This is one reason every ancient Stoic, warrior, leader, and philosopher valued emotional restraint. It builds presence, a quality more powerful than strength itself. Masculine presence is built on groundedness, stillness, clarity, focus, discipline, self-command. Excessive emotional expression destroys that presence. When a man loses emotional control publicly, he sends the message, "I cannot contain myself." But a man who cannot contain himself cannot protect anything else. He cannot lead a team. He cannot safeguard a family. He cannot guide a partner. He cannot hold a boundary. He cannot stand steady in storms. Emotionally explosive men become burdens, not anchors. Feel everything, reveal selectively. Asterisk, you are allowed to feel fully. You are allowed to hurt. You are allowed to love deeply. You are allowed to cry in private. You are allowed to struggle. You are allowed to break down behind closed doors. But you reveal emotions, with intention, with wisdom, with discretion, with security. Your emotions deserve protection, not exposure. Your vulnerability deserves intimacy, not an audience. Your inner world deserves loyalty, not spectators. A man who controls his emotions controls his power. People fear emotional volatility but respect emotional mastery. People avoid men who can't contain themselves but trust men who can. Remember this. A man who shows everything loses everything. A man who controls his expression controls his life. Stoicism does not ask you to be emotionless. It asks you to be the commander of your emotional world. Because the man who stays composed in public becomes the man others look to in chaos. His restraint becomes authority. His discipline becomes influence. His stillness becomes strength. He is not moved by the world. He becomes the one who steadies it. Arguments are traps. They drain energy, waste time, inflate egos, and rarely, if ever, change minds. A man who constantly argues is a man who needs to be right, fears being wrong, or lacks control over his ego. And nothing makes a man look weaker than fighting battles that do not matter with people who do not listen for outcomes that do not exist. Stoicism teaches, the best answer to anger is silence. Marcus Aurelius, arguments aren't about truth, they are about ego. Silence is not surrender, it is strategy. Think of the last argument you witnessed. People raising their voices, insisting they're right, talking over each other, chasing the final word. What did it look like? Chaos, immaturity, emotional instability. In arguments, the goal shifts from clarity to victory, from truth to ego, from growth to domination. Not only does arguing rarely solve anything, it strips you of dignity, because the moment you lose your calm, you lose your power. Most people think arguing proves intelligence or passion. It doesn't. It proves impulsiveness, insecurity, poor emotional control, lack of perspective. The man who argues says, "I need you to see that I'm right." The Stoic man says, "I know I'm right, that's enough." The man who argues needs validation. The Stoic man seeks understanding. If understanding is impossible, he walks away. A wise man has nothing to prove. The moment you try to prove yourself, you have already lost. Think about that. A lion does not need to explain he is a lion. A storm does not need to explain its power. A wise man does not need to convince anyone of his wisdom. Convincing is the work of the insecure. Being is the work of the disciplined. A man who knows his principles doesn't need agreement to validate them. When someone tries to argue with you, they are inviting you into their emotional chaos. If you accept the invitation, you descend to their level. Arguments are engineered to make you react impulsively, speak without thinking, defend your identity, protect your ego, lose your composure. Your opponent rarely wants truth. They want domination, validation, or entertainment. A Stoic man refuses to be entertainment. Let's say you prove your point. Let's say you crush the other person with facts, logic, or eloquence. What do you gain? Do they now admire you? Do they change their mind? Do they feel grateful for your correction? No, they feel embarrassed, threatened, defensive, resentful. Winning arguments loses relationships, drains your peace, and builds invisible enemies. A Stoic man chooses peace over pettiness. If people know they can provoke you into an argument, they will do it. They will use arguments to drain your focus, steal your energy, expose your emotional triggers, distract you from your mission. But if you stay calm, truly calm, and refuse the invitation to battle, you become unpredictable. And unpredictability is power. Humans don't respond to volume. They respond to presence. A man who argues loudly loses authority. A man who speaks softly gains influence. People don't remember arguments. They remember how you made them feel. And nothing feels more powerful than being in the presence of someone who refuses to be moved by chaos. Everywhere you look, debates online, comment sections full of insults, strangers fighting in public, friends arguing over politics, couples yelling in restaurants. People argue because they are angry, empty, bored, or emotionally undisciplined. They enjoy the battle more than the truth. A Stoic man sees this for what it is, a waste of life. He refuses to give his energy to meaningless confrontations. People misunderstand walking away. They see it as surrender. But walking away is emotional mastery, ego control, self-respect, the refusal to entertain nonsense, protection of peace, the choice of the superior mind. Weak men argue. Strong men walk away, because the man who walks away shows he has nothing to prove and nothing to fear. When conflict arises, a Stoic man watches more than he reacts. He listens, not to agree, but to understand intention. He observes body language, tone, emotional spikes. He evaluates, is this worth my time? Is this my battle? Is this useful? He decides, stay silent, speak one sentence of clarity, or walk away. The power of choice is what makes him strong. Masculine presence is built on calmness, stillness, self-regulation, focus, restraint. Arguing destroys all of that. When you raise your voice, flare your emotions, or battle endlessly to be right, you sacrifice the very qualities that command respect. A man who stays composed even when others yell automatically becomes the authority in the room. People who yell are trying to force influence. People who remain calm are influential. Raising your voice is a sign you've lost control. Raising your standards is a sign you've gained mastery. The Stoic man does not need to shout. His presence speaks for him. His silence intimidates. His reasoning outshines all noise. Every conflict becomes training. A Stoic man asks, what does this situation reveal about me? Where is my ego still reactive? What emotion is being triggered in me? Am I responding or reacting? What can this teach me about discipline? Arguments are not something to win. They are something to learn from. Every emotional trigger is a compass pointing to the next area of growth. A man who argues publicly exposes himself. He shows emotional volatility, lack of inner control, inability to manage conflict, a fragile ego, poor composure, reactive nature. People may not comment, but they remember. They begin to think, he's not stable. He's easily provoked, he lacks discipline, he's not grounded. Public arguments damage your reputation far more than you realize. Silence is often misunderstood. People think silence means, you have no answer. You are weak, you are afraid, you are defeated, but silence can mean, your mind is disciplined, your emotions are controlled, the argument is beneath you, the conversation is not worth energy, your principles are intact, your peace is protected. Silence is the ultimate flex in a world addicted to noise. He does not escalate, he does not defend, he does not justify, he does not explain, he does not match the other person's emotion. Instead, he maintains eye contact, stays calm, lowers his tone, becomes still, breathes deeply, refuses to respond emotionally. Eventually, the other person runs out of fuel. Noise dies without reaction, storms calm when met with mountains. Your time is limited, your energy is precious, your attention is finite, arguments drain all three. A Stoic man values his energy too much to waste it on battles that don't matter. He knows, small minds discuss people, average minds discuss noise, great minds discuss ideas, disciplined minds control the room by controlling themselves. He refuses to be pulled into chaos by people who are controlled by their emotions. Your ego wants to win, dominate, be acknowledged, be respected, be seen as correct. Your wisdom wants to understand, grow, conserve energy, maintain dignity, protect peace. The ego shouts, wisdom whispers, and the Stoic man listens to the whisper. Winning is not proving your point. Winning is not defeating someone in verbal combat. Winning is not being right in a public argument. Winning is staying composed, keeping your dignity, preserving your peace, walking away clean, making no enemies, respecting yourself, rising above chaos, and the man who can do that wins every time without ever raising his voice. A man who argues is controlled by his ego. A man who stays silent is controlled by his soul. Asterisk. The man who argues reveals insecurity, ego, emotional volatility, lack of discipline. The man who stays calm reveals strength, clarity, self-control, mastery. Remember this. You do not need to win arguments. You need to win your peace. And the man who can walk away from chaos, calm, steady, unshaken, radiates authority far louder than the one who tries to shout his way into dominance. That is Stoic wisdom, that is masculine discipline, that is true strength. There is a kind of disrespect that is louder than insults, more destructive than anger, and more revealing than anything you say. Self-disrespect. It doesn't show up in your words. It shows up in your habits. It shows up in the choices you make when no one is watching. In how you carry yourself in public. In how you treat your time, your body, your mind, your dignity. Many men think respect comes from being feared or admired, but the truth is, respect begins with how you respect yourself. Stoicism teaches, associate with those who make you a better man. Seneca, but Seneca didn't only mean people, he meant your own habits, your own actions, your own behavior. Because your habits become your companions, your actions become your reputation, your behavior becomes your identity. And careless behavior is one of the fastest ways to destroy your own image without even realizing it. You can dress with style, you can speak with charm, you can act powerful, but your habits reveal the truth. Look at a man's public behavior, his posture, his self-control, his level of discipline, the energy he brings into a room, and you will know exactly who he is inside. Careless behavior shouts, I don't value myself, I don't respect my image, I don't have internal standards, I'm ruled by impulse. And no amount of charisma can cover that up. Stoicism is built on discipline and self-mastery. Careless behavior destroys both. It includes getting drunk in public, acting foolish for attention, oversharing personal matters, dressing without dignity, behaving recklessly, chasing validation, speaking without restraint, mocking yourself to appear funny, being the clown to fit in, letting lust or impulse take over, losing composure under pressure. These behaviors might amuse the crowd, but they weaken you, and they weaken your presence far more than you think. People learn how to treat you by watching how you treat yourself. If you don't guard your dignity, they won't guard it either. If you don't hold yourself to a standard, nobody else will. If you act careless, they assume you are careless. If you allow yourself to be the joke, they treat you like one. Self-disrespect is like leaving your front door open and wondering why strangers walk in. Masculine presence is built on self-control, restraint, direction, groundedness, emotional mastery, dignity, Careless behavior destroys every one of these. A man who gets drunk publicly loses presence. A man who behaves foolishly loses authority. A man who chases attention loses respect. A man who indulges every impulse loses self-mastery. A man without discipline cannot project strength. Many men sacrifice respect in exchange for being liked. They become the clown, the reckless guy, the loud one, the dramatic one, the foolish one. They think being entertaining will make people care. But it's the opposite. Entertainment rarely earns respect. It earns usage. People enjoy you for a moment, but they never see you as someone to rely on, look up to, or take seriously. A Stoic man would rather be respected quietly than liked loudly, but they lose respect for you instantly. The crowd loves the man who embarrasses himself because it distracts them from their own insecurities. But the moment the show ends, they think, he lacks self-control. He can't manage himself. He has no discipline. He's not strong. He's not serious. Your moment of entertainment becomes their long-term judgment. You become a story to tell, not a man to respect. Carelessness often comes from the same place, an undisciplined mind. Stoic philosophy repeats one principle again and again. Control your impulses, or they will control you. A man who acts without thinking slowly becomes a slave to impulse. His decisions come from cravings, urges, emotions, social pressure, short-term pleasure. This type of man cannot be trusted with responsibility, not by others, and not by himself. Stoicism is built on boundaries: what you tolerate, what you accept, what you do not allow, what you refuse to become. A man without boundaries is a man without identity. And the most important boundaries are not with other people, they are with yourself. A man earns respect by setting standards for his own behavior. He refuses to drink excessively, lose control, act foolish, degrade himself, follow the crowd, embarrass himself, abandon discipline, betray his values. This is what separates a man of dignity from a man of impulse. And destroyed in public, one night of foolishness can erase years of quiet work. One careless moment can stain your image. One lapse of discipline can make people question everything about you. People may forgive you privately, but they never forget what they saw publicly. A Stoic man behaves with dignity even when no one knows him, because he knows him. When a man respects himself deeply, he walks differently, he speaks differently, he carries himself differently, he chooses differently, he thinks differently, he behaves differently. People feel the difference instantly. A man who respects himself radiates silent authority. He doesn't need to demand respect. His presence quietly commands it. When you hold yourself with dignity, people treat you differently. Women look at you differently. Men speak to you differently. Opportunities approach you differently. Environments respond to you differently. Dignity is masculine protection. It shields you from humiliation, from careless mistakes, from unnecessary battles, from people who want to test your limits. A Stoic man protects his dignity the way a warrior protects his sword. Big failures do not appear suddenly. They grow from small choices. Just one more drink, just this once. It's no big deal, everyone else is doing it. Nobody's watching. Self-disrespect begins quietly, subtly, in the dark corners of your behavior. In the decisions you think don't matter. But everything matters, because small cracks weaken a foundation until the entire structure collapses. A Stoic man guards even the smallest decisions because he knows that identity is built from the tiniest habits. He sets standards for how he walks, how he speaks, how he dresses, how he reacts, how he handles stress, how he uses his time, how he treats his mind and body, how he behaves in public, what he refuses to do. These standards become his armor, his code, his foundation. A man without standards is a ship without direction, pushed by wind, lost in currents, destined for chaos. You cannot hide your inner world. It always leaks into your outer behavior. A man who is chaotic inside behaves chaotically outside. A man who is disciplined inside behaves with elegance and control. A man who respects himself inside projects dignity publicly. Stoicism isn't about looking calm. It's about being calm, from the inside out. Your energy acts like a signal. Careless men attract trouble, drama, immature people, reckless friends, destructive relationships, chaotic environments. Disciplined men attract stability, respect, trust, aligned friendships, better opportunities, higher quality people. Your public behavior decides which world you live in. Once again, Seneca's words echo. Associate with those who make you a better man. Your habits must make you a better man. Your behavior must build you. Your discipline must protect you. Your decisions must elevate you. A man who cannot respect himself cannot ask the world to respect him. Respect is not demanded, it is maintained through daily self-discipline. A man who masters himself masters every room he walks into. You don't need to be the loudest. You don't need to be the strongest. You don't need to be the most charismatic. You don't need to be the most impressive. You only need inner order, self-control, dignity, discipline, restraint, principles, composure. Because a disciplined man stands out in every crowd, a composed man commands silent attention, a self-respecting man creates natural authority, and a man who respects himself cannot be disrespected by others. Remember this. Respect doesn't come from dominance. It comes from self-mastery. The Stoic man understands, your presence is your power. Your habits are your reputation. Your discipline is your shield. Your dignity is your crown. Never trade any of them for attention, impulse, or temporary pleasure. The world respects the man who respects himself. That cannot be demanded, cannot be bought, cannot be faked, and cannot be negotiated. It comes quietly, it comes slowly, it comes through presence, not performance. It rises from discipline, not noise. It grows from character, not charisma. It is the respect a man earns not by controlling others, but by mastering himself. Throughout all of Stoic philosophy, this idea repeats again and again. Conquer yourself first. Everything else follows, and that is exactly what these 8 principles are about. They are not social tricks. They are not tactics to impress people. They are not manipulation tools. They are a framework for becoming the kind of man who commands respect without asking for it. A man whose presence speaks before his words do. A man who is calm when everyone else is loud. A man who is disciplined when everyone else is impulsive. A man who is unmoved when the world tries to shake him. Let us tie everything together. Becomes a pillar in chaos. Anyone can shout, react, explode, or break. But the man who stays calm, who breathes deeply when provoked, who stands steady when others crumble, becomes a source of gravity. People trust him, they turn toward him, they feel safer around him. Because the man who controls his temper controls his power. And the man who controls his power controls the room. Builds silent strength. Complaining is surrender disguised as storytelling. It is weakness disguised as expression. It is self-pity disguised as honesty. A man who refuses to complain refuses to give life the power to crush him. He carries what he must carry. He endures what he must endure. He adapts to what he cannot change. He solves what he can. He never uses suffering as currency. His burdens make him stronger, not smaller. Speaks with purpose, not pettiness. To speak ill of others is to reveal more about yourself than about them. A wise man watches his tongue. He practices verbal discipline. He understands that silence is better than careless words. People trust the man who does not gossip. People fear the man who gossips. People follow the man who speaks with intention. Words shape reputation. Reputation shapes destiny. Becomes naturally magnetic. The more a man chases attention, the more invisible he becomes. Validation is a cage. Approval is a leash. Applause is an addiction. But the man who lives by his own principles, who acts from purpose, not performance, becomes untouchable. He does not need praise. He does not need permission. He does not need recognition. He simply is, and people respect what is real, holds himself with dignity. Mockery is weakness pretending to be humor. Humiliation is insecurity pretending to be strength. A disciplined man does not punch downward. He does not use cruelty to elevate himself. He does not destroy others to appear bold. He chooses restraint. He chooses decency. He chooses maturity. Because dignity is never gained through disrespect. It is gained through self-control. Expression protects his inner world. Feel everything, express selectively. A man who reveals too much hands others the blueprint to control him. A man who exposes all emotions becomes emotionally naked before strangers. But a Stoic man chooses wisely when to reveal, what to reveal, and to whom. He keeps his dignity. He keeps his mystery. He keeps his emotional sovereignty. And emotional sovereignty is masculine power. Chooses peace over ego. Arguments are ego fights. No one grows. No one learns. No one wins. A man who argues is a man whose ego is louder than his wisdom. But the man who remains still, who listens calmly, responds thoughtfully, and walks away intentionally, is the man who owns the moment. His silence is sharper than any argument. His composure is heavier than any insult. He does not need to win debates. He needs to win his peace, and he always does. protects his dignity, his image, and his legacy. Careless behavior erodes everything a man has worked hard to build. Public foolishness destroys reputation. Impulsiveness destroys respect. Lack of boundaries destroys identity. Reckless habits destroy potential. But the man who respects himself, who holds himself to a higher standard, who moves intentionally, who protects his dignity, becomes someone others admire intuitively. Because self-respect radiates outward, and people recognize it instantly. Self-mastery. A Stoic man is not the loudest, the strongest, the most confident, the most dominant, the most charismatic. He is the most centered in discipline, centered in presence, centered in self-command. He knows that true respect is not given by the world, it is generated from within. When you master your temper, your complaints, your tongue, your need for praise, your ego, your emotions, your arguments, your habits, you master yourself. And the man who masters himself cannot be shaken by anything outside himself. A man who has mastered himself does not need to announce it. You feel it, in how he walks, in how he breathes, in how he pauses before speaking, in how he observes instead of reacts, in how he chooses silence over chaos, in how he holds himself in adversity, in how he respects himself even when no one is watching. It is not loud, it is not dramatic, it is not forced, it is simply there, like a mountain rising quietly from the earth. Calmness is power, discipline is freedom, self-mastery is respect. There is nothing more intimidating than a man who cannot be provoked. There is nothing more attractive than a man who does not seek validation. There is nothing more powerful than a man who commands himself. Respect does not come from dominance. It comes from composure. Strength does not come from noise. It comes from restraint. Greatness does not come from ego. It comes from discipline. A Stoic man knows this. The world is chaotic. People are unpredictable. Circumstances will challenge you. Life will test you. But the one thing you can always control is yourself. Your reactions, your emotions, your choices, your presence, your behavior, your discipline, your inner world. Master these, and you will walk through life with a quiet authority that no one can deny and no chaos can touch. Never lose control in public. Never beg for validation. Never disrespect yourself. Never let the world pull you out of your calm. A man who masters himself masters every room he enters. A man who is disciplined earns respect without effort. A man who is still in the middle of chaos becomes a source of gravity. And a man who walks with dignity, restraint, and purpose, a true Stoic man, needs no attention, because respect follows him naturally. Reflect on what you heard, and if this message resonated with you, please share, subscribe, and let calm be your strength.